Tom Szuba going to Dearborn was a big local news item, and I think the coverage picked up a lot because of that. I tried to go back. I was looking at some old newspaper clippings, and there was a lot of stuff about, Tom had been a state champion the year before in Class B, and it was a lot of that. This, prior state champions at Dearborn now, and here's what's happening. We had a really good rivalry with Etzel Ford, Dearborn Etzel Ford High School. In fact, they, that first half of 70, when Tom couldn't compete, they beat us at their pool. The paper said there were 700 people there to watch that meet, either in, probably the stands only held about 200, and there was an overflow room. And then they came to our place after January when Tom could swim. We only beat him by 1 point. And that was, a huge crowd there. It was really played up in the paper. Then the next year we went to Groves, who had, Birmingham Groves, who had won the states the year before, and beat them by 1 point. And I can remember that being a very massive crowd as well. So, I didn't, to me, that's just what it was at the time, because I didn't know what it was like before, because I wasn't a swimmer. But it kind of helped me to be naive. I mean, I'd go into workout, and Jeff would say, okay, we're going 10 400s, on, I don't know, interval on the 5.5 or something, and I go, okay. I mean, I thought that was normal. Found out later that's not normal. The kind of workouts we did. I'd do in backstroke. So, but it was
again with no goggles.
Yeah, with no goggles. You'd spend your whole day not being able to see anything after a morning workout.
So let's talk a little bit about 71. And this is a big year for you individually. You not only win your first individual state championship, but you also break the state record in the process, and you'll go on to even bigger things in 72, and we'll talk about that. But the first always is special, right? Can you take me back to that meet and that race, what you remember of it?
Honestly, I don't remember much about it. That year, there was no one close to me. So to win that was expected. I was more concerned about, I also was a runner-up in the 200 free that year. I was more nervous and remember that race a lot more than I do the 100 back. I went into the 200 free and actually qualified first for the finals, but then Peter Daly blitzed me. He was out in lane 6, but he beat me pretty well. But that's something that people I don't think really knew about me was, I was a great backstroker, but I could swim freestyle. I could swim others. I remember I took first when we went into Birmingham Groves in 71. I swam the 200 IM, and they put me out in lane 6. And I beat both Bob Rex and Doug Bell, who were both finalists that year at the States in the 200 IM. I had a terrible breaststroke. If I had a good breaststroke, I could probably maybe keep up with Tommy. That race was, it's just something that was expected. I was really, more than winning it, I was more concerned about the time, about getting, good qualifying times for the Region 6 AAU championships and the national championships.
Let me ask you about that. That's one thing that I also like to get a little bit better perspective, for me and anybody that might see this is obviously the playing field changes and USS swimming becomes a much bigger deal. And so for a swimmer right now who hears the letters AAU, doesn't mean anything to them. But that was the scene, right? This Region 6 championship meet that you just referred to, I've heard many guys talk about that this was a big deal for you to go down to places like Cincinnati or, wherever they held a championship meet at that time, and you were going to get the best from the Midwest, and you were really going to be tested there. Tell me about the AAU scene, but in particularly that meet.
Yeah, AAU is just governing body. I mean, it's same as U.S. swimming. It's just that, you know, as part of the way they ran swimming is they had regions in the country. We were in Region 6, which was, you know, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, Ohio. And, you know, part of the season, like I said, we constantly reset goals. And, you know, once I became, you know, I won't say untouchable, but, you know, I was comfortably the best backstroker in the state. The next goal was, okay, you got to go to the regionals and do something. And then it was go to the nationals. And that's how we all felt and trained. But the Region 6 was a pretty stacked region. You know, we had Hinsdale, Illinois, had a bunch of people. You had Indiana, you had the Cincinnati Marlins, they had a phenomenal program. They had an indoor 50-meter pool. They had, you know, a bunch. They had Dina Deardorff was a 13-year-old world record holder. They had Mary Keating, who became Mary Gary Hall later on. They had some great swimmers, and they had a couple of good backstrokers as well, who you know, gave me competition. And you know, at the regionals, I would you know, get anywhere from first to third, mostly second or third. There was always probably somebody who could beat me at the regionals. But that set the stage then for going to the nationals, where you had everybody. Whereas, you know, swimming against Mike Stam and Mitch Ivey and guys who made the Olympic team in '72.
So in '72, I got a feel for the timing from Tom that the trials were later. And so there was really no interference with him being able to focus on having a great high school state meet in '72 and then preparing for the trials later. And, you know, that's something that a lot of the guys now, you know, depending on when trials are held in more recent years, have struggled and sometimes had to completely skip their high school season in order to be able to focus on trials. And you guys didn't really have to worry about that, or at least weren't worried with that. So
well,
you
I disagree
go ahead.
A little bit. The Olympic trials were the first week of August, whereas the nationals are usually the third or fourth week of August. And you know, we couldn't get outside to a long course pool until June. So we had, you know, very little long course training before that meet. I mean, that bothered me a little bit. But you know, what it was. I qualified and I got to go, and it was an awesome experience. You know, I was kind of overwhelmed by it, to be honest with you, to see all these swimmers there and talk with them and race with them, and it was a nice older pool like Brennan's at Portage Park. It was that era of pool, concrete pool, and they were both fast pools.
I mean, this is a historic trials. I mean, there's a reason that an 18-year-old like yourself would be overwhelmed a little bit, or not, that might not be the right word, but eyes wide open at the whole scene, you know, for no better reason than the fact that this is Mark Spitz's Olympic trials, that he's preparing himself to go on and do what he did with his historic '72 Olympic trials. But like, again, like for any swimmer that's might be listening to this and thinking about like where bars are being set when I'm trying to take on a challenge like I'm taking on to rank swimmers, the summer after your high school senior year, you placed in the top 20 in the 100 backstroke in America at Olympic trials. Now, that means, you know, that's a high bar. I mean, when you think about how many backstrokers have been in position to be among the top 20 backstrokers in the country right out of high school, and basically at the end of their career, you can count that on one hand at best. And you're one of the most recent. That must have been pretty cool, heady stuff.
Probably only two, maybe three non-Americans who were faster than I was. So that was the problem with U.S. swimming back then. Is, you know, the top three made the team as opposed to the top two now. But you know, the person who placed 15th at the U.S. Olympic trials could have gotten, if they were the third person on the team, could have gotten fourth at the Olympics. U.S. swimming just dominated back then. But to me, that, you know, getting there was, I went into it realistically. I didn't expect to make the team, but I wanted to swim a lot better than I did there. I didn't swim particularly well in the 200 there. You know, went 2:11.2, I think. I'd gone 2:11.8 like 4 weeks before at the Water Wonderland meet at Brendan Pools. I think I swam 10 or 11 events that meet. We used it as a workout. But I was expecting to go a lot faster. I was expecting to go down, you know, low 210s, maybe even high 209s, you know, which wouldn't have got me in the finals or anything, but that was a little bit of a disappointment.
Certainly, I can get that. But before that meet, also, you know, jumping back to the high school state meet in '72 back in March. So you do some big things here. Now, you talked about Kuzma winning the backstroke, and I want to say 55.4 when you were a sophomore, and then you break that state record. But I didn't break 55, and like you said, you expected to win. But you left a lot of meat on the bone for your senior year, and you skipped 54 completely, and you become the first Michigan boy to go under 55 and 54, which is a cool thing whenever you can to take that record to another place. Again, I know your eyes are on big things nationally in the Olympic trials, and you're winning these races by a significant margin, but take me inside that senior year, and if you can, that backstroke, which is a historically significant swim when you're doing what I'm doing and stacking up great backstrokers.
Yeah, no, that was, you know, I really wanted to break 54. I thought I could, and you know, was able to put it together. Again, I hoped I'd go closer to the low 53s than the high 53s. But, you know, I got the state record in the prelims. I won the finals. I think I went 54 flat in the finals. And it was a good win. I mean, I think, again, at that time, I was more interested in our team because, you know, we knew we had the chance of coming in and really blowing every other team out. And, you know, the backstroke, I was pulling for Alan Gajewski. We went 1-2 in the backstroke. He was the other backstroker who had to swim in my shadow the whole time in his high school career. It was great to see him go second. And I think we had everybody we took to the meet scored points, which again was a lot harder than them because they didn't score as low down. So that's mostly what I remember is the team experience in doing that. But I was happy with that race. I was happy I broke 53. Was looking to do better things down the road. Ended up going 53.3, and I think it was my career best, leading off a relay. So it still counts. But you know, it was a tough mark. It was hard to consistently stay below 54.